Welcome to Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on this podcast. Like we always do, we are having the Pioneer Party on this podcast. So they're going to share with you their great ideas and what they're all about. So welcome to the podcast, Pioneer Party.
Hi.
Hi. If we
Long
could get
live
started
freedom.
by, yes, long live freedom. That's what we're all about. If we get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Sure. My name's Ted Parker, and I made the Facebook page Pioneer Party in response to it just seemed like a really one-sided, stagnant political culture that was being represented in the media back in the day. So of course, I think the Republicans and the Democrats are two wings of the same bird. And, they, nothing gets done. They serve themselves. And so it's just like they've strayed. I just feel that they've strayed from their, responsibility to, protect and, defend the Constitution, and so they're whittling away every chance they get. Every administration takes big, huge chunks, away from our our constitutional rights and civil liberties. And
Okay.
I made the Pioneer Party before I realized that pioneers is actually a communist thing. So when you're a budding communist, it's called a pioneer. So that's when you're in like the school uniform, you wear the red handkerchief, and you go to pioneer camp. And so like the Soviet socialist, communist thing, they're called pioneers. I did not have that in mind when I made the Pioneer Party. I was thinking more like the Pilgrim Settlers, going back to basics, back to basics, going back to orthodoxy of American values of, natural law, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech, freedom of privacy, and cool things like, the first coin that the colonists ever, minted themselves outside of King George. The only thing that was written on that was mind your business. And I love that. That is that's an American ideal that needs to be going, because they just want to, get into everybody's business. They want to, invest, they want to hunt everybody, and I don't want to be hunted. So I made the Pioneer Party.
Great. So you talk about natural law. That's a term that we hear a lot about, especially in the context of American history. I'm not sure everyone's familiar with that, so if you could please give a brief overview of how you perceive that.
Sure. Natural law is just, the laws of nature, So it's just like, right to self-defense. Somebody's attacking you, you have a right to defend yourself.
Okay.
If somebody, takes your kid, you can go hunt them down and get your kid back. You know what I mean? It's just like it's just the laws of the laws of nature. The right to riparian rights, like the rights to access water. You can't sit there and say like, oh, all the water in the river is mine. You can't. That's why there's riparian rights. So even though you have private property, you can't prevent somebody from going collecting water on your property if you have water on your property.
Oh, you can't. California. Interesting. In California.
Yeah, those are called riparian rights. So you can collect rainwater. They're trying to outlaw collecting rainwater. Nope, that's natural law. If it falls from the sky on your property in your airspace, it's yours. And nobody can stop you from doing that. It's natural law. You can grow your own food, no matter what it is. It's natural law. You have a right to feed yourself, right?
Okay.
You have a right to defend your own property, which is a loyal title to a certain extent. And just getting back to the basics of just being self-sufficient and being able to stand on your own if you so choose, while not being dependent on anybody. That's the American way. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the natural rights, they stem from the Creator, right?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. And fair play, fairness. Fairness is every creature is born with an innate sense of fair play. And that's from source. You teach your dog and see how he looks at you. And then you just violated natural law. Fairness is a natural law. Fair play, equity, and a lot of people call it karma or whatever. Every culture's got their own label for it, but it's all the same thing because we're all part of the same nature.
Oh, sure. So if that's that, if this is our nature, why do people go against the nature then?
They've been taught to do that. It's the difference between like true and false, right?
Okay.
So if you look at like Taoist concepts of true and false, or like emptiness and fullness, you've been disconnected from that. You've been disconnected from nature, basically. So if you go against nature, a lot of times the most obvious examples of like going against nature would be shitting in your food. Pardon my language, but taking a dump in your food. You're not going to eat your own poop, right?
Yeah.
But you do it. We do it in other ways. Like you might have a spotless house, but then you go out into the street and you litter. Some cultures don't do that. Like in Japan, they don't do that. It's very clean. They're if you want to look at like the most shining example of, harmony with nature and keeping a super clean environment and still living alongside, still living and thriving in modern society and having clean water. You can go to pretty much, I bet you can probably go to any creek and stream in Japan and drink the water out of your hand and be fine.
Wow.
There's even some towns where the creek will run through the town like the Romans, right? And they would just use constantly running water for their sewage and sanitation. And so the houses are built into the creek. So you walk down some steps and then you're on the water line. And there you don't use detergent to wash your dishes, right? So you have your meal and you go out there, and then what you do is you just put the dishes in the water, right? In this like a little lagoon. It's like, it steps down into like a little area, and then there's the water for the creek. And you just place your dishes in there flat on the rock or whatever surface is there. And then the carp will come, the goldfish will come, and they will clean all of the food debris and leave your dishes spotless without any kind of detergent or products that will poison the river and therefore the fish.
Oh,
so they just enlist the fish. You know what I mean? So it's just like, so if you don't mind, fish spit on you can live without soap, which is nice.
Okay, so I take it what the goldfish do is non-toxic to humans.
No, not at all. They just eat the scraps.
Okay, so they don't leave anything on there that would be toxic for the...
No, the water is moving. It's running. So it's constantly being rinsed.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I never heard of that before, so that's something new for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We can look it up. The internet,
Yeah.
Lots of stuff on the internet.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting. So do you think we're too far in the other direction for us to get to anything like that here in Japan? It's not a smaller country than us,
well,
too, so...
The problem that we have now is that we're ruled by the corporations have really taken too much control of the government. Corporations are bigger than the government, right?
Sure.
And so they have a profit motive, right? The corporate, they always they have a profit motive, and they're always trying to do it, better and faster and cheaper than the next guy, and trying to cut costs all the time because they love their investors so much. We want our investors to be happy. And, that's their excuse, but at the same time, it's just like, I think, everybody would be happy with, any creek you could go drink out of and be fine. I think that's a good thing too. Or any patch of land you buy is able to grow food on. You know what I mean? It's like the mining industry has poisoned, like, large square mileage of farmland whether intentionally or unintentionally, but anyway, the land is unusable for anything, you know. And I think that's a crime against nature. So that's a violation of natural law. I would love to see a lot more, you know, like governmental, you know, like the Environmental Protection Agency, you know, needs to, you know, step up. And I think a big part of that is all of the conflict of interest in government. There's so much conflict of it. Like you probably have an ex-Dow Chemical executive in charge of the EPA. You know what I mean? And so it's just like he's gonna, you know, they're all, you know, people have a propensity to do what their friends like, you know, regardless of that. They can't get their head out of this, you know, microcosm of, you know, the people that they're, you know, 7 degrees of separation, you know, where it's just like, you know, this 7 people affect my opinions, and that's what I'm going to go for and make these decisions that affect the entire country for all time, for all these generations. And it's just like there needs to be a stopgap for that. And one of the biggest things that needs to happen is to get rid of the conflicts of interest. And the biggest conflict of interest is campaign contributions.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
All of these politicians are sworn to serve the people, like the wretched, the poor homeless guy in rags, barefoot on the street, living in filth. You know, his congressman should be there helping him out of the gutter, but he doesn't because he's spending all of his time filling his pockets for himself and for his largest campaign contributors. That guy is wretched and on the street because he didn't make a campaign contribution. And that's wrong. And it's an easy fix. All you have to do is you just put campaign contribution limits on there, right? Then suddenly becoming a politician is undesirable to the narcissists. You know, I mean, I can't make a lot of money and, you know, wield power. You know, it's just like not at maximum $250. Like if the maximum campaign contribution was like $250, just think of how much more, marketing these politicians are going to have to do. And they're really going to have to, you know, collect money from people. That means their ideas and their policies are going to have to appeal to a wider selection of the population. They're actually going to have to serve the general populace instead of like 2 or 3 corporate officers. You see what I'm saying? So that's an easy conflict of interest, you know. And so get the conflict of interest out of the government, campaign contributions. How about dual citizenships for senators? It just seems like they're selling their seat to foreign interests. They're not serving the people. You know, you can talk about America first. How about we serve Americans first, and senators can't have dual citizenship? Like I heard about a senator who got dual citizenship while sitting as a senator. You know, and it's just like, well, then, you know, that person should lose all of their security clearances and not be allowed on any secret committees, you know, because now they're an agent for the country they just got dual citizenship in. I mean, it's just like very simple stuff. Like, you know, like how about we don't contract out janitorial supplies for military buildings? You know what I mean? Have military personnel take out the trash, and that's just like spy op 101. You know what I mean? It's just like if you want to get information in a classified, you know, corporation or business, then you become the janitor and you look through all the trash, right? So why are we contracted out to who knows, you know? And because you got to remember that every time the government contracts its job to a corporation, right? The corporation's primary concern is profit. So they don't have a national allegiance, right? They're gonna do whatever, you know, officially or unofficially to the highest bidder. So it's just like you just gotta, let's be reasonable here. Let's take a step back, you know, be a little more conscientious about loyalty, a little more conscientious about what we're doing, and really protect and defend and uphold the Constitution and the American people, especially the weakest and the most because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Good point.
You know what I mean? So it's just like the government needs to be a tide that rises all boats, not just hoards money at the top. You know?
Sure. So do you support tariffs then?
I support reasonable tariffs. You know, I mean, because that's how the government has always made its money since before King George. Like the taxes really don't pay. And like, you know, Reagan, you know, lifted the veil on that one with the Gracie Commission. So one of his campaign promises were that he would get to the bottom of the tax code, which was like they were adding like a new phone book size of tax legislation. It seemed like every 6 months. And so one of his campaign promises that got him elected was that he was going to solve the tax, you know, mystery. And so he got elected, he kept his promise, and made the Gracie Commission. And the Gracie Commission determined at that time, when the national debt, I think, was like $1.5 trillion, that 80% of all of the American income tax collected by the Fed went to pay the national debt, went to the interest on the national debt. And so it didn't pay for any government services at all. So when people are going, you know, I want government, you know, I pay for this service. No, you don't. You pay for the interest on the debt. You know, the government is footing the bill through import tariffs. So that's how the governments make money. But trade wars, I mean, like, you know, you talk about ridiculous numbers. I mean, you want to get like 20%, 60%, like that's a trade war, right? So then nobody wins. Now, if you want to turn off importation, right? If you want to turn off the spigot of importation, then you have to have something ready to replace that. So you should if they were going to, you know, do import tariffs of like 60% with China, right? Make everything 60% more expensive coming from China, then that's going to jack up the price at least, you know, 60%, maybe 120%. Suddenly Chinese goods aren't so, attractive and cheap anymore. And that could be to make it so that, because the reason why Chinese goods are cheap is they don't pay their labor anything. Like, they're, you know, your iPhone, they're paying those guys like 20 cents an hour. And, you know, they make them sign contracts. Don't kill yourself while you're making iPhones for us. And they put them in these buildings with nets so that they can't jump out the window. And, you know, they're living 5 and 8 to a room and hoping to pool their money so that they can share a car on the weekend. You know, and I mean, that's the way it was, like, you know, probably 10 years ago when I made the website. But it's, you know, so the reason why we don't have the cheap stuff here is because we have things like minimum wage laws and, you know, benefits. Like, you know, good old Ross Perot, he was just like the number one hit to profits is employee wages and benefits, right? And so if you want to jack up the price of imports, similar to what domestic production could produce, paying living wages and benefits to the people, then that would be good. But you'd have to, you know, at the same time, you'd have to be able to, you know, bolster, like provide grant money and, maybe government guaranteed loans, business loans for, you know, key sectors of manufacturing just to fortify the GDP. You know what I mean? For the essential goods and services that we all enjoy, you know, not just entertainment, but good stuff, you know, good quality things, you know, good electronic technologies, alternative medicine, and you know, all just you know, good stuff, like, you know, like, how about textiles, hemp? What happened to hemp? Homespun, like, you know, in the colony days, everything was made out of hemp. Like, you know, was the guy Ben Franklin was the ambassador to France, and he always wore homespun, which was hemp clothing made here in the colonies. You know, it's like a walking billboard for, like, look at our cool shit. I mean, our cool clothes. And so It's like they've gotten rid of like all, I think there's only one textile plant left in America that makes blue jeans, like good old fashioned denim. Like denim has gone the way of the dodo. That's an American icon that's being eroded by communism. You know what I mean?
Huh.
So it's like if you look at all of these, there's a huge communist infiltration going on. It's like Agenda 2030 is a huge communist takeover of the world, right? And so if you look at like all of these like flash mobs and stuff, these are all like communists that are being organized through social media. And if you look at their target, like perfume counter at handbags, 7-Elevens, arcades, these are all capitalist targets. You know what I mean? So they're trying to, give capitalism a bad name. And capitalism is great because, believe me, there's nothing quality and everything good is not communist. Everything good is not communist. And we did great. We've done great. And sure, the corporations have gotten big and out of control, but that's our fault. We let them get that way. You know what I mean? We haven't voted with our dollar. We haven't voted wisely with our actual ballots. You know what I mean? And so it's time for, even that wretched guy on the street, has the right to vote still. He'll be stinky off to a little pew all by himself, but, he can still vote, and that's what needs to happen, because right now it's just like, another huge thing that needs to happen. All right. Besides conflict of interest getting rooted out of government, is the media needs to be brought to task to actually informing the population. And I think the best way to do this is to reinstate the fairness doctrine. So back in the day when radio was first invented, there was the fairness doctrine, right? It's the only time the world came together in universal agreement over something, and that's when they sliced up all the radio signals for countries. And so when in the United States, when they did that, they realized that, the importance of being able to tell everyone the same thing at the same time. And they knew that if a propagandist got a hold of that, it would be disaster. And that's what we're having right now. That's the main communist tool that's destroying our country is this media, bias and media brainwashing. So if you restore the FCC rules, and President Trump can do this anytime he wants. I'm surprised he didn't do it his first term. He's sitting there the whole time going, the media's picking on me. Well, you're the president. Pick up a pen, reinstate the fairness doctrine. All of the propaganda goes away. All of the editorializing and opinionating goes away. There's equal time, right? So if you, under the fairness doctrine, if you buy time on a TV or a radio station, right, for an editorial or commentary, if you're an old fart like me, you remember back in the day on the TV and you'd see up on the little corner of the screen would say a commentary or editorial, right? That person bought time and is putting their 2 cents on the TV. This is my opinion. I think everybody should wear green hats on Tuesday because I like green hats and green hats are awesome. Wouldn't it be fun if we all wore green hats on Tuesday, right? And so that's your time, right? So you bought time in prime time and you told everybody to wear green hats on Tuesday. Under the fairness doctrine, anybody had 30 days to come to the TV station or radio station and get put on the air in the same time slot for the same amount of time for free. It's the fairness doctrine. So anybody else could come back and be like, green hats? What are you talking about? I don't want to wear a hat. I have this beautiful head of hair and I like to show it off. And so this guy can go kick rocks for his green hats on Tuesday thing, And, so anybody, including political candidates, right? So if say you're a political candidate and you don't have large corporate sponsorship, but you've got a lot of great ideas for, good policies that'll, be the tide that rises all boats. It's really the thing that the country needs. And you have a political candidate buys airtime and says, X, Y, and Z, then you get to go on the same time slot for the same amount of time for free and be like, you know what? That's what he said. This is what I say.
Oh, wow.
And
wow,
it just puts, that's the meat, how it was. That's why the news used to be so boring and dry, You know, it was like, you know, good old, you know, Walter Cronkite with the evening news, because it was unopinionated. It was just the facts, and you could believe it. It was true. Like they used to, you know, it was a big deal if they said anything wrong. But as punishment for the Gracie Commission, Reagan was shot, and at the end of his term, he abolished the Fairness Doctrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every president does something against the people, and for the plutocrats against the people. Reagan's big sin was to abolish the Fairness Doctrine, you know. And so if the president got rid of it, a president can put it back in. So I urge President Bush, priority critical task number 1 to make America great again is to reinstate the Fairness Doctrine and get truth back in the news and get rid of all the propaganda and hold them accountable under the FCC. And, you know, and have some responsible broadcasters be in charge of the FCC and not the political propagandists.
Well, sure.
Anyway, that's my big flag right there. Yay!
Okay,
So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about President Trump because he's a wild card, you know. And so he's a wild card. So he could go either way. You know, he could you know, cause a calamity like he did last time, or he can really turn things around and become really one of the greatest presidents that ever did. If he just goes back to the basics and upholds the Constitution in a real way and does it so that all the boats rise, not just his corporate partners.
You think he'll do that?
I hope. I pray every day. So yeah, we'll see. You know, time will tell. It's you know, it's all the rich guy club. You know, the way the governments are set up right now with this, you know, UN Agenda 2030 and the whole bit. It's all the rich guy club, and Trump's a rich guy. You know, so he's part of in the club too. Like, look at Putin. Putin is scuttling Russia. You know, he could be scuttling Russia for Windsor. You know, they'd be like, "Yeah, you want to be the new czar? You want to be part of the monarchy and royalty? Then you have to do this for us." You know, squander all the armies and get rid of the communist armies in North Korea too, because you know they're going through about 2,000 people a day on both sides, Ukrainian and Russian, and that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. It's just an impossible meat grinder. They're not fighting to win the war. They're just fighting to send souls into the abyss that is the Eastern Front there in the Donbass region, and now Kursk, right? There's no objective. There's no plan. They can't find their butt with both hands in the dark. You know, they don't. You know, it's just complete insanity. Life expectancy is like 10 days. Those 10,000 Koreans they sent, they're already gone. They want to send 100,000 more. That's 3 months worth at this rate. You know what I mean? And then I hear that England wants to commit troops. Really? Do the English want 2,000 of their bravest and brightest to go, jump into the abyss, never to be seen again? For how long will that last? Poland wants to do the same thing. They're just going to go into this total stalemate and just waste all of these lives. All it's going to do is just reduce the population, which is a horrible waste of resources because the world is so messed up right now and it's totally fixable, right? It was like a lesson I learned in high school. We were in the horticulture area and we were cleaning up and we had this dumpster full of like cement bricks and, all kinds of rubble and debris in this dumpster. And so this dumpster probably weighed about, as much as a car, maybe a car and a half. And so they're just like, we need to move the dumpster over here so that they can get it. And it's like, it's too heavy. And he's like, it's not too heavy. And we put, 25 kids on it and we pushed it like it was nothing. So all the problems of the world are solvable if you get enough hands on deck. Right?
Wow, I think so.
And there's plenty of people that are willing to do, all these jobs that you think nobody wants to do, people do for free. I mean, look at the YouTube there. These guys that, just drive around and they look for, abandoned houses. And you know what? I'm going to clean the dirt off of the sidewalks and I'm going to, groom the grounds of this while nobody's home. I'm going to be like a little elf making shoes for the guy in the middle of the night. Why? Because it's fun. Because I like wielding a weed whacker. You know, believe me, God makes somebody for every task. And if you're bogged down in life trying to do what somebody else says, you know, you can't do what you're meant to do, you know, and what you're meant to do might be totally valuable, you know, and beneficial for everybody, but not profitable, you know. And so while you're constantly under the yoke of the cost of living, you know, I even wrote a book, you know, I don't know if I can plug my book. I wrote a book called The Cure for Slavery. I'm working on the second edition now. But basically, it's a system to monetize labor debt free, right? So you turn your work, you know, your work, whatever it is you're doing, raising your kids, picking up trash, whatever it is you want to do, you can convert that into money debt free, right? With a little razzle dazzle, like, you know, corporation, you know, you're an officer of the corporation, and you know, you really work for an agency regarding a bond, to fulfill a bond, to a trust in a bank, to a trust bank, right? You can do like this little razzle dazzle. You know, this is the way, you know, we found out in 2008. It's all about financial razzle dazzle and, you know, semantics, and so you can create this financial razzle dazzle and semantics so that you can monetize labor debt free. And if you can monetize labor debt free, then there's no such thing as unemployment, because then you can make money doing whatever it is you do, you know. And if you monetize unemployment, everybody becomes self-employed by default. All of the social welfare programs go away, right? You don't need a handout from anybody, which is the American ideal, right? And it's not a handout. You earn it. You work for it, you know. And it's standard, right? So you fulfill a bond, say, hey, I'm young, I want to work for 25 years. The bank will say, all right, look, we'll fulfill the bond at the standard rate from this agency. You know, how does $50 an hour sound? He says, that sound good. And so he signs up, he gets his account along with his, ATM card. There's an app, and the app is like a time card from a temp agency. So he goes to McDonald's and he flips burgers for minimum wage. And then he comes back, and then at the same time he logs in $50 an hour for that day's work. So he gets another $400 debt-free dollars on top of that, right? And knows you don't need Social Security, you don't need welfare, you don't, this system could even eventually eliminate the need for taxes. So, I mean, there's more to it. It's, if you want to do a whole other thing on that, we could do that. But, so basically that's the whole thing. It's a debt-free money supply from the grassroots level. So the money supply is inflated every day, hourly. And then that money, right, overall valuation is from the total of bonds. But then those daily deposits become the reserve for the bank to do fractional reserve lending to itself, because as we learned in 2008, you can loan money to yourself now, apparently, after Clinton got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act. Remember, I said every president commits a sin against the people. Well, the Glass-Steagall Act was one of them. So let's take advantage of it. The bank can loan money to itself. You have a bank that loans money to itself, for this purpose, instead of filling individuals' money with pockets with money, it can underwrite the Fed. It can underwrite the stock market. It can underwrite all of the insurance companies, right? And it can fund everything that's not profitable, like education, the environment, and healthcare, right? That's another grievous sin that's going on right now is healthcare. Oh my God. So healthcare, it's kind of like Fahrenheit 451, where, the firemen go around starting fires, and now it's like the doctors go around making everybody sick, to feed the pharmaceutical company. So that can go back to the way it was, where, doctors are working every day to sit around and do nothing because everybody's healthy. That's the ideal under natural law.
Okay. That sounds good then. That's good information.
A lot of fun, right?
Yes. So you think the most impactful reform would be, because on this podcast we talk about a lot of election reform ideas. So you think the most impactful one would be limiting the campaign contributions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Eliminating campaign contributions and restoring the fairness doctrine. Getting equal time back on the air.
Okay. Now, some people would say that the fairness doctrine violates freedom of speech and freedom of the press. What do you say about that?
That's communist propaganda. How is giving everyone equal time a violation of freedom of speech?
They would say because each corporation, each channel, each media outlet should have the right to air whatever they want on their outlet.
Not if they're public. Not if they're public. See, that was the whole thing. It was public. This is back in the day when it was public. Everything was free. You didn't have to pay for it.
Okay.
Sure. If you're a cable, if you're Spectrum, or like some other cable company, and you're doing cable company news, and it's not public, you know what I mean? You're providing news to your subscribers. Sure, say whatever the hell you want. You're outside of the fairness doctrine, but you can't call it news.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? You can't call it news.
Huh.
Yeah, you'd call it infotainment or, you know, whatever we feel like what we want you to know today, you know, but it's not news, you know, because the news, you know, there's rules, you know, you got to answer it's journalism, right? Got to answer the questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. None of those, like less than half of those questions are answered in every single newscast, you know.
Okay.
And plus, under the fairness doctrine, you can't have these ridiculous talk shows and all that stuff on there. I mean, it's just like all that stuff goes away because it's not fair. Like if you want to have a religious debate on your public TV show, right? You have to have representatives from every religion.
Every?
That you can come up with.
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying? To be fair.
Okay, yeah, separation of state and church as well. You can't favor one religion over
another.
another.
You can't favor one. Yeah, so when they're talking about, we want to put the 10 Commandments in the schools. Well, sure, you put the 10 Commandments in the schools, put the 615 mitzvah in the schools, put the Muslim rules in there, the Hindu rules, put the Bhagavad Gita, you know, the Kama Sutra in there. You know, you have all of the rules represented from all of the religions, and see how they compare. Put the Egyptian Book of the Dead up there too. You know, I mean, so it's not just one, but all of them. And in this way, everybody will be enriched because they can see all of the different religions and see how they can compare. How much. This is the big one. How much all of these different religions agree on the same points.
Huh.
Because we all come from the same nature.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, so that sounds good. So your two main reforms that would impact the system the most would be the fairness doctrine, reinstating it, and also putting campaign contributions on.
Yeah, campaign contributions for starters, and then a secondary, a critical subtask would be to get rid of the conflict of interest.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so that's a good thing for us to think about. Our audience can think about that and how to implement that. So how can our audience support you?
Oh, well, just spread the ideas. You got the ideas. You can't stop the signal, Mal.
Now it's incumbent upon them to do it, right? Now they have.
Yeah.
It behooves them.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. You hear it?
Be the tide that rises all boats.
There you go.
Support and defend the Constitution.
Yes. Yep, the Constitution. Yep, that's what we're all about here is the Constitution. We love the Constitution. We love the first 10 amendments. We love the First Amendment, especially focus on that, and we love the rest of the Constitution too. So that's a great way to end the show. It's a great honorable call you can call everyone out there too.
Right on. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for calling me and asking me for the interview. I had a wonderful time.
Terrific. We love to hear that, and we wish you all the best in your political endeavors and also everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
You as well. You as well.
All right. Take care and all the best.
You too. Keep the faith. All right.